This is Beering Ain't Easy. Do you spend all week thinking about what new beer you'll try next? Then yeah, this podcast is for you. Come join us while we try new beers, share our ratings, debate craft beer culture, and in the process, throw a few jabs at ourselves. So crack one if you got one, and turn it up.
Welcome to Beering Ain't Easy with Adam and Drew, episode 14.
Welcome to November, y'all.
How long did it take you to come up with that?
You were with me. You saw that, I got an easy way out this episode.
So basically, the listeners know every new month, that's what he's going to come up with.
Yeah, unless the number has some sort of significance.
So we had our inaugural Halloween episode.
First annual.
The first annual. What are you thinking about the Halloween episode?
That was fun. I had fun, probably mostly in the post-production, adding stupid Halloween sounds into the mix. But it also was interesting to hear some of these unique Halloween costumes that you had through the years.
I think my mom is really going to enjoy listening to me talk about my Halloween
talk
costume.
Shit about your costumes.
Yeah. I'm not even going to tell her about it, and I'm going to see if she listens to it.
Yeah, that's a real test.
If she doesn't talk to me about it, then it's proof that she's not listening. And basically, she doesn't support me.
Oh, man, that's just going to come up in the next Family Guy therapy session.
Brace yourselves.
So what did you think about the beer we had last week from New Belgium, the spicy special release pumpkin beer?
I think I told the audience last week what I thought about it. And after having a week to reflect on it, I stand by my decisions.
You just took that beer and you just shattered it all over the floor.
It was so unique that I gave away 2 of them to one of my friends.
It was kind of funny because I was there when he cracked open that beer and he's like, man, Adam must have really not liked this beer because he gave me 2 of them.
Yeah, so of the 6-pack, I have 2 left. I'm scheming who I'm going to give the other 2 away to.
Yeah, you just sneak it into their fridge in the cover of night.
I may have put one in your fridge when I came over tonight.
So today's episode is going to be the first of our Origins series. Do you want to tell the audience what we're talking about when we talk Origins?
We're talking about being brewed outside of Texas.
Absolutely.
So, I'm from Iowa, the great state of Iowa. Drew is from Arkansas.
Today's episode is going to be all about the state y'all really want to hear about, which is the great state of Arkansas. I spent the first 18 years of my life in Arkansas.
The worst 18 years.
No, there's some good times there.
Good times.
But I moved out and I've been to Texas. I've been to California. I haven't really been back.
Have you? That's the question. Have you ever been back?
I visit. My family still lives in Arkansas, but,
bless their souls.
So before I get into a little bit of the Arkansas story, I just thought I'd shout out to our pregame beer, which I picked up when I was visiting my folks in Little Rock at the East 6 Brewery. This used to be called Rebel Kettle, but recently changed ownership. So I thought we'd start with that one as our pregame. It's called Chicken and Dumplins.
Is it brewed with chicken and dumplings? Is that a Arkansas trend?
I saw it. I was like, I wouldn't put it past them to throw some of that shit in there. But so I was a little wary when I first took a sip, but then I realized it's a solid hazy IPA. So it's not chicken and dumplings, but it's got some pretty cool can art, which has chicken and dumplings on it.
It is an interesting looking can. And I'm sitting here reading this label, and it has a really strange statement on it. Comforting like your grandpa's favorite Southern meal. What does that have to do with
living that Arkansas lifestyle?
Comforting. I think it's a solid beer.
Yeah.
That's a pretty solid hazy IPA. Not the best I've ever had. Not the worst I've ever had.
You've been holding off on that phrase for at least 5 episodes. You just wanted to bring it back. But I thought that one, we shot it dead.
It came back to life. The chicken and dumpling brought it back to life.
So the Arkansas that I see now is a lot different than the Arkansas that I remember growing up. And so I got to, take the good with the bad. We're going to start with the memories I had of Arkansas and what really, frankly, drove me out of the state a little bit. We had an episode about beer politics, and we did talk about some weird Arkansas laws about having to write an essay. But I didn't bring up the fact that in Arkansas, you can't buy any packaged alcohol on Sundays.
At all?
At all.
The whole day?
Whole day.
Wow.
And not only that, there are a number of counties still in the state that are dry counties where you cannot buy alcohol at all.
In the whole county?
In the whole county.
Not even packaged or served?
No.
Nothing.
You got to drive 15 miles to the next county or whatever and go pick up your beer.
Wow. I didn't know that still existed.
Yeah, it still does today. So some of the stuff still exists. It's not near as prevalent as it was probably when I was a kid.
And so did that drive you to become the alcoholic you've turned into today?
I think it may have. I feel like that's kind of like when you have that ultra religious influence on things that usually drives you.
Yeah.
When you're the preacher's daughter.
You are going to rebel.
But my favorite crazy memory from Arkansas, I grew up in a town called Fort Smith, and it wasn't a bad place to grow up. But they had these churches in the surrounding areas that could be a bit extreme. So they were releasing a new Harry Potter book at a bookstore, and this church actually came and set up a protest outside the store that was selling the new Harry Potter release. They were trying to pray away Harry Potter in Fort Smith.
Wow.
You don't even have a response for that, do you?
I don't know what to say. I mean, I was prepared to make fun of you during this episode, but I didn't realize the kind of lob balls I'd be getting. I almost feel bad going at you after these comments.
I figure with this episode that I would just go for the low blow on myself first so that it would just take all your thunder away.
This whole situation reminds me of 8 Mile, where Eminem is in that rap battle and he bashes himself and the other guy has nothing to say. Yeah, now I know how that guy felt.
Just blank stare. That's where my memories of Arkansas are. But now that I've come back, and my family's mostly in Little Rock now, and I come back and there's all these breweries now in the state. And Northwest Arkansas, where I grew up, not really Fort Smith, but when you get up where all the Walmart money's touched, Rogers, Bentonville, Fayetteville, that area is pretty awesome now. And Little Rock has got a pretty up and coming beer scene too. And even the hometown of Fort Smith has their own brewery. I'm actually wearing their shirt today, Fort Smith Brew Co.,
nice.
which is pretty amazing that the town that would have prayed away Harry Potter has a brewery now.
Well, I have an Arkansas story that I can tell.
Oh, what is this Arkansas story?
It has to do with basketball, actually. You remember, back in the... I think it was, back when, Bill Clinton was president. Arkansas was really good at basketball. I think they actually won a national championship.
Oh, yes, they did. I was a diehard Razorbacks fan. Nolan Richardson, 40 Minutes of Hell. That was where it was at.
Yeah, so that is my only... I don't know why I remember this stupid story so vividly. It was during the NBA draft. And my dad was he liked this guy, Cornelius Williamson.
Corliss Williamson.
Corliss, whatever the hell his name is. And so we're watching the NBA draft, and the Timberwolves select Kevin Garnett. And my dad is raving, oh my God, I can't believe they selected this high school kid, Kevin Garnett, over Corliss Williamson, or whatever the hell his name is. And Kevin Garnett goes on to be a Hall of Fame caliber player. And
but did he ever have the nickname Big Nasty?
I'm not going to answer that question. So that's pretty much what I knew about Arkansas growing up.
So I'm glad that I could educate you on the dark side of Arkansas. So I think we should introduce the beers today. We have got a full deck of Arkansas Stouts. You want to run down what we're drinking?
We have quite a lineup today. So we are going to do a bourbon Barrel Aged Stout beer off, if that's a word. I think I've used that word like 3 or 4 times on this podcast, so
it's trademarked now.
It's pretty much official now. Beer number 1 is from Ozark Beer Company. They have a nice little slogan. Work hard, honest beer. That sounds like Arkansas to me.
It kind of reminds me of the simple slogan from Maine Beer Company, which is like, do what's right. It's kind of boring a little bit, but they still make good beer, so I hope so. Yeah.
Okay, so this beer is BDCS 2020.
I am super excited about this one, by the way.
I am excited. Beer number 2. Lord God. This is from Flyway Brewing Company. It's kind of a cool looking can. Lord God seems very representative of Arkansas.
I think that's fair.
Beer number 3. Do you want to do the honors on this one?
Yeah, I'll do the honors on this one. Beer number 3 is Nighty from Lost 40. And this is actually a 2019 batch. It's got a pretty badass can, especially since we're coming out of Halloween. It's got some like zombies and shit on there. I got to give a shout out to Lost 40 because they most recently won an award at the Great American Beer Festival. They were the best mid-sized brewery, so big shout out to Lost 40 there. They've done some good things, and that was pretty surprising to me that they won that. So I'm excited to have them on our lineup tonight.
So for those of us that are not from Arkansas and have never been to Arkansas, we thought the audience deserved a frame of reference to compare these beers that they've probably never had and probably don't have access to. So what we've done is we've thrown in a 4th beer. We have Founders KBS. This is the real deal.
Yeah, it's always in the top 5 American beers every year. I mean, it seems like this one's always up there.
I'm going to be impressed if these Arkansas beers can stack up to this.
Yeah, that's the challenge today. So let's drink up.
So Drew, how the hell did you get these beers?
That is a great question.
I know it is. That's why I asked it.
So in the previous episode, we talked about how we've joined a lot of Facebook groups, and I obviously had to join one in Arkansas, being it's my home state. And so it's called the Beer Geeks of Arkansas.
I was wondering if that was allowed, if like beer Facebook groups in Arkansas were within the laws of Arkansas.
Don't tell the state legislature, otherwise they will shut that shit down. So I was going up to visit my family in Little Rock, and I had this great idea. If someone wanted to order Houston beers, they could order their beer. I'd pick it up, and then I'd drive it all the way to Arkansas. And if you want to throw me a few dollars for gas or an interesting beer that I've never tried, that would be awesome. And so only one person took me up on this offer, but it ended up being a pretty epic decision because that person did not trade me 1 beer, not 2 beer, but all 3 of these stouts came from my buddy Steve up in Little Rock. He came through in the clutch with some badass stouts.
Represent, Steve. When you arranged the meetup, were you a little worried about what would go down?
How so?
Like maybe a Arkansas serial killer was luring you in?
I thought you were going to say like the Arkansas Liquor Police was going to like arrest me for bringing illegal contraband from Texas into the state.
Did you have authorization to bring that shit
crossing county lines? I thought I'd roll the dice and take my chances. I met in a public place. I didn't meet in like the rest stop off of like, off of the highway or something. I met at a respectable East 6 brewery. So, what do you think? Is it time for us to hit the stouts?
I think everyone's getting sick of listening to our bullshit.
Let's bring on the ratings.
All right, Drew. It is time to let everyone know the outcome of this bourbon barrel aged stout beer off. Beer number 1 by Ozark Brewing Company, BDCS 2020 version. Let's talk about it. What are you thinking about this beer?
So when I first smelled this one was an all bourbon nose for me. I had trouble picking out other flavors at first.
So when I tasted this beer, I got a vanilla hint, but also like a pretty strong molasses flavor, which is not a bad thing.
I felt like this beer, the warmer it got, the better it got. I loved the vanilla on it. And I felt like this was the smoothest beer we drank. I picked this one as my top beer out of all 4.
Wow. So back to your comment about the smoothest beer is that I thought all of these beers were heavy as shit.
Yeah.
So by calling it the smoothest beer, don't think you're going to buy this beer and it's going to be an easy drinker. These are all pretty stout beers.
Oh, they're all over 10% alcohol.
That is why we cannot speak right now.
I want to say, I'm just going to make a bold statement that every single one of these beers we drink today is a buy again for me.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I love barrel-aged stouts.
So where does this one stack on your rankings out of the 4 that we drank today?
This is number 3.
Really?
Number 3 for me. I'm not a huge vanilla fan.
Where'd you go on the Untapped rating?
So that's really going to let people know where I stand.
Yeah.
So I went a 4.25.
Really?
And so when beer number 3 is coming in at 4.25, you know that we're bringing it on this episode.
Yeah, so my Untapped rating was a 4.25 as well, but that was my number 1 beer.
Wow. And we were talking about that a little off air. I love bourbon, independent of beer. And I love bourbon barrel-aged stouts. And so we were thinking that I would come in with higher Untapped ratings. So let's transition to beer number 2.
Lord God
by
Flyway.
This one differentiated itself in terms of smell. Like when I smelled this beer, I got a chocolate smell. Like that was kind of the dominant smell that I got, especially compared to the other beers. So what are you thinking about this beer, Drew?
Yeah, the smell 100% on point with what you just described. I felt like out of all the beers, this one, even though it was over 10% ABV, this one was the easiest to drink. It hid that ABV from all the chocolate. And it was not as overwhelming on the flavor, but it did have a little bit of a fruity finish with the chocolate.
Yeah, so the taste that I got in this one was like a very, very dark chocolate cherry finish. So I thought it was a very tasty beer.
So where did it stack up on the rankings for you?
Number 2.
Number 2.
This
is my number 3 beer out of the 4.
Really?
Yeah. But I did go with a 4.0 on my rating.
I went a 4.5. I thought this beer was bringing it.
Nice. Lord God, I feel like I'm going to get struck down for not picking it as number 1.
That's part of the reason I picked it.
Yeah, trying to hedge, yeah. So number 3, the third beer we had was actually Lost 40 Nighty Night. And this one, honestly, it differentiated itself. It was rye whiskey and red wine in this mix. And when I smell this, I definitely smell and tasted it. I got that Cabernet dark cherry flavor.
To be honest, I felt like bourbon dominated the smell. The one thing that I thought was unique is all of these beers were exactly like you would envision a heavy stout to look. But when I poured this beer into the glass, I could get the slight tint of maroon.
That's that red wine, man.
The primary flavor is I felt like it had a strong Cabernet flavor to it.
Yeah.
It was very, very interesting. Not exactly what I'm looking for in a barrel-aged imperial stout.
I'm with you 100% on that. I actually rated this one as my number 4 out of 4.
Me as well.
And I gave it a 3.75.
I gave it a 4.0. The final beer in our lineup, KBS, Kentucky Breakfast Stout. What did you think, Drew?
So this was our benchmark beer. And I got to say, when I smelled this one, I smelled bourbon, but some amazing coffee and some oatmeal. It was a definitely unique smell compared to the other three.
That just brings up a point, is that when we did these 4 barrel-aged imperial stouts, like we were sitting here before talking, we were like, it's going to be hard to differentiate the taste. And like, I felt like there were 4 completely different beers.
Oh, I agree with you 100%.
This experiment has been a lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely.
This one was dominated with coffee, but it wasn't like your everyday coffee flavor. It was the roastiest of roasted coffee.
Heck yeah. I'd almost say it's like burnt coffee.
In a good way. At least for me, it was in a good way.
The only downside, like I agree with you, I love coffee beers, and this one was the most coffee forward beer out of the 4 that we had. But it was a little boozier and it was a little harsher because that burnt coffee was a little bit harsh on the end compared to the others, which I thought were a little smoother.
See, like that may be a negative for you, but that is a positive for me. So like, I'm a big bourbon fan. When I let this sit on my tongue, I got the spice like I get with bourbon, and I thought it was fantastic.
Nice. So I'm guessing by your comments that this was your top rated beer.
This is number 1.
Nice.
And this is up there with any stout that I've had. And I've actually had this beer before. It was before my Untapped rating, but I remember at that time thinking, God damn, this is a good beer.
What was your ranking now, though, as being your top dog?
So I went 4.5, but I tinkered with 4.75.
Nice. So since I said BDCS was my top beer because it was the smoothest, this one was a little harsher, but I still love the coffee flavor. So this was my number 2. I still gave it a 4.25, same rating as I gave the BDCS. So definitely a great stout. But I gave the edge to the smooth beer versus the harsh beer.
Weak sauce. I thought it would be interesting before we wrap up this episode to look at the average Untapped ratings. So which of these beers do you think has the best average Untapped rating?
Well, I'm guessing the Arkansas beers have less people that rate them, like in the hundreds or thousands versus the hundreds of thousands of the
You are
KBS.
correct. You are correct on that. But which one do you think has the highest rating?
I'm going to go BDCS.
You are partially correct. What are the chances that we have a tie?
Wow.
So BDCS and KBS have a tie. There is one thing that is drastically different between these two.
The number count.
So BDCS has a 4.42 average rating, and that is bringing the heat.
Oh, yeah.
But they have 531 reviews. You know what is freaking impressive? KBS. They also have a 4.42. The difference is they have 197,000 reviews.
Holy shit.
And you got to figure that there are some people who have drank that beer that don't like that type of beer.
That hate stouts.
And so that probably has brought their rating down a good bit.
And that's why they've been one of the top dogs in the U.S. every year, year after year.
Yep. So I have a couple takeaways. Not a lot of people review Arkansas beers.
You're going to hate on Arkansas. You know, they just haven't discovered what the natural state has in store.
All right, everyone. You witnessed the world's greatest barrel-aged imperial stout beer off with Arkansas beers. Thanks for listening, y'all. See you next time.
This has been a Beering Ain't Easy production at the Sesh Co-working Podcast Studio in Houston, Texas. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you want to see what we're drinking, our Untapped handles are Beering Ain't Easy Adam and Beering Ain't Easy Drew.